Hello, today we're looking at the Lab 1 solution. So here I am looking at the first sheet, basic formulas. So I'm not going to complete all of these, but I'm going to complete enough to show you what the issue is. So we've got these ranges and we want to do some math on them. So the way that we want to do this is under average. Sorry about that banging around, I keep hitting my microphone. I want to grab average. Notice that that is the incorrect range. I do not want B22 through B47. It is my job to select the correct range. Right, so the range should be B1 through B47. Then I head on down to count, so I'm going to head over to this auto sum button. I want the average. Notice that this is even more wrong. Stops in the wrong place, starts in the wrong place. I do not want that piece of information. Instead, I want to start in cell B47 and work my way up to B1. You might notice that that time I swiped from the top to the, I don't know, top down, and the other time I went the other direction. There's also, oops, I definitely did that wrong. So let's pretend that was on purpose. So notice that was average, and what I did wrong is I did average when I meant to say count. So really, you can always edit a formula like that. Right? What I wanted was the count, which really means how many numbers are in here. Also notice there's a blank cell, and I'm including that in my range. That's the way this is meant to be done. You certainly do not need to deselect that. There's also the other way to do these, which is just realizing it's B1 through B47, so I could write equals max of B1 through B47. Right? The important thing here is that I've got the correct ranges. So it's just going to be that exercise. So it's going to be 20 practices with selecting the correct range. This is not fill handle friendly. There's really kind of no way around it. So I'm going to pause it and we'll have some answers up in a second. Alright, so we're back. You can see my answers. It was basically just the same exercise over and over and over again. There's really no shortcutting this, and that's a big part of realizing what this problem is and what it isn't. There's no way around it. You're going to have to explicitly address the range every time. Here's kind of a trick. It's not much of a trick, but it helps to check your work. If you double click on a cell with a formula, it highlights the range, and so that range should be only on the numbers that you want. There's plenty of practice exercises on this posted in the weeks, I will also mention. Alright, on to financial information. So this is a good example of how I phrase things on a test. I don't tell you the formula, but I tell you exactly what you need to be able to do. So here, I'm going to say purchase price times number of stocks. So purchase price times number of stocks. It's going to be your job to translate that into Excel. And then I fill handle down. So current total is going to be current price times number of stocks. Sorry, I got caught thinking there. Not so good at that. And then profit and loss, I'm going to do current total minus purchase total. Right, and those are the things that I tell you to do down in the instructions. This right here is a grand total. If you want to add up all of those, probably the best way to do that would head over to sum. Is that the range I want? It is, and I am done. On to NASCAR. So we're talking about conditional formatting here. I want the top 10 drivers by money, so I'm going to highlight the money column. Notice I'm not grabbing the header, and I'm certainly not doing that because that's not the same thing. I press Control-Shift down arrow to select the range. Now I want the top 10 drivers by money, so that's conditional formatting. That sounds like top 10. Notice that you can go top 10, like you can make it top 11, but this is a top 10. And when I say red on red, that's what I'm looking at. And very easily now you can see the top 10 values. On to NASCAR 2, another conditional formatting problem. Bottom 25 by money, so again I'm going to select the range E2 through E68. That was Control-Shift down arrow is the shortcut for highlighting. Conditional formatting, and I want the bottom 25. Notice there's no bottom. There's a top, and if you... oh, actually I lied. I'm sure there's a bottom. So bottom, I don't see bottom 25. This is what I meant to say. You can type in or spin it up to whatever values you want. And this is what I mean by green on green. You can very easily see the bottom 25 values now. On to NASCAR 3. So a bunch of conditional formatting on this sheet. So we want to start by doing the earnings, so money. So we want to highlight green on green for the values greater than 2.5 million. So Control-Shift down arrow. Conditional formatting, top bottom, or sorry, highlight cells greater than, what was our magic number? 2.5, so 2500000, and we want to make those green. You can pretty clearly see that it happened. Next, we want to do drivers with at least one win, and we're talking yellow on yellow. These are wins, so I want to select that range. Conditional formatting, highlight cells greater than, so at least one. That means greater than 0, which that may or may not be intuitive. And we're doing what here? Yellow on yellow. Notice the notation I use. That's what I mean by that. And the last one, we want to highlight red on red the guys with between 10 and 20 top 10 finishes. So this column right here, we want between 10 and 20, so conditional formatting, between 10 and 20, red on red. So that was a whole bunch of conditional formatting exercises. Next, link. So this is a little just kind of a different exercise. So we want to reference to another sheet. So if you want to reference another sheet, I do not mean a link, right? Like I do not mean a web link, a hyperlink. I mean, click in the cell that you want to create the link, type an equals sign, and then switch to the whatever sheet we're talking about. So I'm going to switch to basic formulas, click on cell B48. Notice what's happening up here in the formula bar. I press enter, and I get that. All right, and so I do have the contents of cell B48 from the basic formulas worksheet. If I double click on it, you can see that's what the contents are. So that's the name of the sheet, and that's a reference to the cell on the sheet. LPGA, so now we're talking about if function. So I'm going to start here. This is a cell-wise function, so it's different than the conditional formatting. I do not select the range. It's under formulas, it's under logical, it's under if. So I've got to look at this as, what is the cell that I care about? So I'm looking at total score, so I'm going to say for this first player, the total score is here. If that score is less than or equal to 215, because notice the or less part. Then I want to say under. Otherwise, I'm going to say over. I click OK. This player was under. That seems correct. I can double click the fill handle for a big shortcut here. It looks kind of incorrect because they're all under, but if you look at the scores, those are all under 215. And everyone over 215 is over, and you can see that it worked. There's always many ways of writing these ifs. If you wrote it differently, it's not really a big deal as long as it works out correctly. So I'll show you that again. If you ever mess a formula up, probably better than deleting it is clicking on the FX button, and then you can see this. All right, only a couple more here. So insert a function which returns winner if the player was under 72 for round 3. So this is our determining column, if you will. I'm going to start in cell K3. I'm going to head over to logical if that cell is under 72, then I will say winner. Otherwise, I want to say not winner. And I am tabbing through these dialog boxes. Like when I'm here and I jump down real quickly, it's because I press tab. There's some interesting things that don't translate so well from a face-to-face class and an online class. So you might be seeing this solution video and learning some cool tricks. So tabbing around my boxes, that control-shift down arrow is how I'm grabbing huge ranges really quickly. Like they're the kind of things that you don't need. And hey, right, double-clicking the fill handle to grab a huge range and fill it really quickly. Those are just the kind of things that you learn with experience, and they talk about them briefly in your book, but there's definitely some tricks out there. And we're almost to the end here. Goal seek. So here I want to write a formula which is going to calculate gross earnings. So this is nothing fancy. This is just going to be equals pay rate times hours worked. And now, so that's kind of the easy part of it. And now I want to do a goal seek to figure out. So I'm asking the question, what pay rate would I need to get to $1,000? That's under, so if you click on the cell that you want to do a goal seek on, head to the data tab, head to what if analysis, goal seek, set cell B3. Notice I'm in B3 already. I want to set it to $1,000. And by changing cell, I think of that as what's the variable. So by changing the pay rate, which is in B1. This is a scary looking little dialog box, but there's really only 3 pieces to it, and I think it actually reads fairly intuitively once you've done a few. I do that. Oh, that looks kind of interesting. I click OK. Now I've got pound signs. Pound signs means I need to widen the cell. It's your job to widen the cell, whether it's explicitly stated or not, and you can see I would need a considerable raise up to $25. Kind of a cool tool. That's how it works. And on the last sheet, there's almost always a very clear last sheet, just so you know that you've finished. So I'm asking for a header with a particular format. I always do my headers by clicking on the page layout button right there. And so on the right, I'm just going to write my name. And in the middle, I want the current date, which is that thing right there. And on the right, I want the file name, which is that right there. Notice it looks like gibberish. It's supposed to look like gibberish. Also notice that when you flip back to normal view, it's gone. But it's not really gone. It's available in page layout view. Notice I'm switching the views. Alright, so that was a lab full of all the really, I think, most important content that we've gone through in the first 2 weeks of the course. Some really good things in there, particularly the conditional formatting and the ifs. And of course this big five, I call these big five functions here in the beginning. So we've covered some ground. One way to think of it is we're close to halfway through the Excel content. So make sure you're comfortable with everything that you just saw there. You've got a video, so you can work through this lab as many times as you need to. My intention is that you will review this as many times as you need to. I might have made some mistakes. I did it as fast as I could, so if I did, then let me know.